being sold today.
I'm sorry, do you mind if I record this
Not
conversation?
at all, not at all, not at all. Let me
Thank
just,
you.
okay. It's a mature market. The products that are the dominant products are all designs that are 50, 60, 70, 100 years old.
Mhm.
And if you look at it, it's been pretty stable over the last decade. It took a hit during the financial crisis, but new guitar sales have bumped along at about 2.8, 2.9 million units for the last decade, moving a little bit up and down. And the split is pretty even electric acoustic.
Mhm.
It vacillates a little bit, but 52, 48, one way or the other. What surprised everybody was just this enormous bounce in the guitar business with COVID. And to put it in perspective, 2021, I think, is going to be the biggest guitar year we've ever seen. We think new unit sales are going to push near 4 million units. And so you're talking about a 30, 35% jump. And
And to
that's
clarify,
astounding.
are you talking about in volume and the units sold, or
Unit volume, and the dollars will be even higher because average selling prices are up.
Yeah.
So it's a banner year for the guitar business, and it's one where the demand has dramatically outstripped the supply. So what does this mean long term? Here are just a few random thoughts about this. The guitar, I think, just has tremendous durability. And if you look at it intrinsically, it's kind of easy to understand why. It's an immensely versatile instrument. It is applicable in just about any genre you can imagine: classical, rock, country, all these alternatives, even hip hop. And so it's versatile, it's affordable, it's accessible. You can either be a virtuoso, but you can make something happen with just a few chords. And it's a thing of beauty aesthetically. It's a piece of sculptural art. So all of these things, I think, have contributed to the lasting appeal of the guitar. We think that what will probably happen, and I couch this with just having not seen what happened previously, is there's an attrition rate every time you get a new first-time buyer. If you have 10 first-time buyers in a year, 8 will probably give up and put the guitar under their bed or in a closet.
Yeah.
And people debate the magnitude of that attrition rate, but that 20% that stick with it, they basically, are lifelong customers. And I think if you look at Z-Sounds or American Musical Supply, you have a lot of customers who are guitarists who buy more guitars and basically buy a lot of strings and accessories, and they just purchase a lot during the course of their lifetime.
Mhm.
So we sense that this big surge, you're going to have a drop off in the entry level, but the higher end market probably has an opportunity to capture some of these people who buy a $200 or $300 or $400 guitar, and the ones who stick with it, they will most likely trade up to a better instrument. And so, we think that there are good times ahead for the market. I'm just kind of speaking randomly here. Another thought is just, you've had this fragmentation of popular music.
Yeah.
Spotify lists, the last time I looked, it was something like 1,260 genres. And, you can't even begin to, French dubstep, house music, whatever that is, I don't know, but they're things. And this lends a kind of stability to the market. When you have just so many diverse genres, and the guitar has worked its way into all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them, but an awful lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And, we think that popular music diversity bodes well for the market. But, it's a great instrument. Sounds wonderful. It just has this intrinsic appeal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. There's something timeless there. Yeah.
Are you a guitarist?
I am. Yeah. I have, I can't really see my strap out of the corner there.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see an acoustic there too. I can't quite make that
It's
out.
a nylon string. Yeah. From Mexico.
Okay. I mean, there's kind of a historical precedent to this, what's happening now.
Mhm,
In 1964, the Beatles appeared on Ed Sullivan,
mhm.
and overnight the guitar business doubled. And if you look through the old music trades issue magazines that we had from that time, the primary supply was manufacturers struggling to keep up with demand. And what happened was you had this surge of first-time buyers. And then as the fad aspect kind of waned 2 or 3 years later, for entry-level guitar sales really tapered off dramatically.
Yeah.
Um, and by 1969, all these Japanese guitar makers, which at the time that was the source of low-cost instruments, much like China and Indonesia are today, there's just mass bankruptcies in all these guitar companies. But Fender, Martin, Gibson, Guild, the premium guitar makers, they had another good, solid decade of very strong sales because they were capturing the people who were trading up.
Mm.
And another thing, I'm speaking randomly here, but if you look at new guitar sales, that doesn't capture the full extent of the market because there's an enormous used market.
Yeah.
And we can't track it. We've tried to do it with retail surveys, and some retailers who are guitar centric, 50 or 60% of their business is used. Others, primarily mail order retailers, much lower percentage because they don't have the opportunity to trade. But then on a platform like Reverb, they're selling hundreds of millions of dollars worth of used guitars that trades hands, thousands and thousands. So I mean, maybe the used market is 50% of the new market.
Yeah. But
We
it's
don't
got
know.
to
I mean,
be unknown. Are you saying it's largely unknown for you?
yeah, it's hard to quantify
Yes.
we can kind of quantify the new market based on import data, what flows in from Asian factories, and we have a pretty good handle on the U.S. production. So you put that together and you get a pretty good idea of just the volume of new product produced. Used, I don't know. Have you ever bought a used guitar?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you're there, and maybe you bought it from a friend, maybe you bought it from a store. But all these products change hands, and it's hard to quantify. But guitars hold their value.
Yeah, they do. I'm curious if you noticed any specific trends from the start of COVID. Like, for example, I would assume that early on in those early lockdown months, maybe March through May, a lot of beginner guitars were sold, or lower, dollar, maybe 300 or less dollars. And then maybe when the stimulus checks came in, you started to see higher end, people started to splurge on themselves. Did you see anything like that or anything different?
What we saw was that in mid-March, when the first lockdown orders came, just about everybody in the industry that we talked to braced for absolute disaster. They felt the world was coming to an end, and it was cash conservation mode, batten down the hatches, just survive, anticipating a precipitous decline in revenue. And early April, once those stimulus checks started flowing, the floodgates opened. And I think it was across the board. I don't think that it was, entry level, high end. I mean, the surveys that we did with retailers was, anything with frets we can sell, and stuff flew off. And I'm sure, at Z Sounds and American Musical Supply, you're still inventory constrained. You're probably losing business because you don't have as much product in stock as you'd like.
Across categories, yeah.
Yeah. And the guitar industry seems to have has moved production up, and they're more aligned with demand at this point. Electronic keyboards, they're still lagging because they have these bigger macro issues that are chip shortages, and ADA converters are in short supply, and having to re-engineer products to accommodate the available components. It's just a bigger headache for them.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't seen any. Really, April, it just went crazy. and it still seems it has not subsided as of yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the big question: is it, and will it? And there you're kind of in uncharted waters. My sense is you're going to see a drop off in entry level guitars, and the premium manufacturers and the premium brands will have an opportunity to capture some of these buyers for some years to come. And then after that, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. So how did 2020 for guitar sales compare to 2019? And, I'm assuming it looked like the guitar.
It's about, when we look at it,
Yeah.
year over year comparison, 2021 to 2020 are kind of, it's not really comparable, because for much of the year, large numbers of brick and mortar stores were shut down. The online retailers picked up a lot of the slack, but not all of it. And so it's not directly comparable. We think that it's going to basically be 30% higher than 2019.
Okay.
And so it's just the unit volumes are just blowing people's minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm talking to the US manufacturers, they're pretty much sold out through third quarter 2022.
Wow.
And they're concerned a little bit about whether some of those orders may be canceled at some point, because they can be, but just the demand is very strong.
What is driving that success? Because in 2021, there hasn't been a stimulus check in a while. Inflation is going up everywhere else. What's driving this?
I think that a lot of it has to do with external activities and entertainment opportunities outside the house have been and continue to be prescribed. They're reduced. You have fewer opportunities to spend money outside of your house.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are working at home. And I think this continues to spark this interest, like maybe this is the time to take up an instrument. And then I think another ancillary factor is just all this online educational opportunities. If you, not too long ago, if you wanted to teach yourself to play the guitar, you had a handful of method books and some tablature. And now you go online and tape in any song that is remotely popular, and chances are you'll find a halfway decent video that says, this is how you play it. Put your hands here. This is one way of doing it. And I think all of this stuff is just helpful in terms of getting a beginner to the point where they're having some satisfaction. They're playing a song, they're getting some musical satisfaction out of this. So you put this all together, fewer things to do outside the house, time at home, perhaps because you're not commuting as much, and better educational opportunities. And I think all of this kind of spirals together, and just it is helping. And we do have inflation and prices are rising, but guitars are a better value today than they've ever been. We track, if you take a look at like a Fender Stratocaster or a Martin D28, they're products that have remained unchanged for decades. They're very comparable. And if you were to take the median income as measured by the US Census, and how many hours at median income would it take to buy one of these instruments, and then you chart that over a 50-year period, you just see that year by year guitars are more accessible. A good guitar is more accessible. And I think if you look at the entry level, a $300 guitar today is actually a pretty serviceable instrument, and that's not true if you were to go 2-3 decades ago. So put it all together, and I think it just makes for a better opportunity for the market.
Yeah. So would you say the guitar has fared better than other instruments and other music gear categories during the pandemic?
The demand for keyboards has been really strong, but the supply has lagged a lot more
Yeah.
than
So-
the guitar industry, and it's really, in the third quarter of, we saw it really, synthesizers, digital pianos, all forms of portable keyboards, keyboard controllers, all of this stuff. The import volumes are basically halved,
Wow.
and part of it's supply chain, but it's basically trace it back to this chip shortage. I think the demand for the keyboards is there, but the guitar is still the most popular. It's the most popular instrument. It is the most widely sold. Dollar wise, it's the biggest component of the music industry.
Mhm.
Guitars, and then if you add in all the products that get pulled along in the wake of a guitar, it's $2 billion, and it's a big chunk of the business.
Do you have any demographic data to share about who was buying guitars, primarily like age group, income, that kind of thing during 2020 and 2021?
No, I mean, no, we really don't. I mean, I've looked at this. I've seen some surveys that manufacturers have done. I think that what you can say, though, is that with each passing year, the guitar appeals to a broader demographic.
Mhm.
Because if you look at it, if you start, what we think of as the modern guitar industry, it really started with the Beatles
Mhm.
in 1964. It had been kind of perking along, but that's when it really got traction. And at that point, it was primarily the province of young men. People, early teens through mid 20s, and that was the demographic that bought the guitar. And today, you still capture that demographic, but now you get a large contingent of women who are using guitars. And I'm sure that your sales data at Z-Sounds bears this out.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of baby boomers who've continued playing and continued collecting. So the demographic, I think, has, while I can't quantify it with precision, where the guitar is appealing to a broader segment. And that's pretty indisputable.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, that's what we're seeing too on our end, which is great. It's well,
and you can kind of see it. I mean, it just it factors into so many genres. You have someone like Billie Eilish but she's got guitar backup, and it just seems to appeal and factor into just about every demographic in every age segment.
Yeah.
So
last thing I wanted to ask you was, what do you see, I guess, what trends do you see emerging in retail, on the retail side of things, and what would you recommend retailers prioritize or take notice of?
Oh boy, I mean, I think it's kind of increasing specialization. The way we look at the retail landscape, you have companies like yours that are sort of a large, broad-based product selection.
Mhm.
And there's some competitors that sort of have a similar, general store. We sell just about everything you could possibly want. But when you get into the brick and mortar realm, there's a place for specialists with somebody who has a real encyclopedic knowledge. The year that they changed from a slot screw to a Phillips screw on the pick guard kind of stuff, that minutia.
We have a guy like that.
we call them like the forensic guitar guys, and there's a place for that. Yeah. And I think the used market also creates an opportunity at retail too, because people like used guitars.
Mm-hmm.
There's this joke that the difference between a good guitar and a great guitar is the story.
Mm.
And so all in all, I guess I'd have to say I'm pretty bullish about the near-term prospects of the guitar, and I qualify that because this whole COVID thing has just guaranteed that it upended everybody's forecasts.
Yeah.
There you sit in Ohio, and I don't think you were expecting that to happen. And
no. Exactly. In one way, nobody saw COVID coming, and then I think what most people thought COVID would do to the industry was pretty much the opposite.
Exactly. So, if you look at what we think of as the industry, I'm sure your experience bears this out. Stuff that works in a household environment, a guitar, a keyboard, some kind of recording setup, sales of that stuff has boomed.
Yeah.
The products for live sound, DJ stuff, not so good.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
that has changed. Although some of these smaller DJ rigs have done pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. For the at-home hobbyist. Yeah.
Yep. So, crazy times we're living through.
Yeah. Absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to add that I didn't touch
No,
on?
I can. You know what I can do that might help you. I'll send you a database that we have that you might find useful in just some more hard numbers that
Okay.
you might. And if you use it, just please cite music trades.
Oh, absolutely. Will do. I plan on publishing this in April. Before I do that,
Oh, April. Oh gosh.
yeah, it's a ways away. I'll be sending
Okay, well,
around.
by April we'll have 2021 numbers. I mean, we're still in the process of putting that stuff together.
Oh, okay.
But we're looking at we're just looking at where it stands now, and excuse me,
No
probably
problem.
somebody trying to sell me a car warranty.
Oh, I get those all the time.
Yeah, I mean, but here we are, year end. We can see what happened through the first three quarters, and based on that and sort of a historical guess, any way you slice it, this is going to be a really big year for the guitar industry.
Great.
It's just like how big, but big.
Yeah, yeah, that's good news. Well, I'll probably be bothering you for the 2021 data when that comes out, if you don't mind.
Glad to help, Mason.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Oh, sure thing. Okay, take it
Nice
easy.
talking to you.
Bye.
All right. Bye.